right. This is all right. I like it. Joe.
Do you like nerding out?
Yep.
Yeah, I took a big swallow of nerding out and really enjoyed it. That's good. Mine's going to be short, so I'll start it off. Mine's really nerdy. Ever since I started doing podcasting, I've had it feels like a million emails. A lot of them I've let go, like different email addresses. Some are for specific projects and whatever. But currently, I have a number of emails I'd like to use, but it's hard to log from one to the other to check them. And it's a noise in the back of my head that for the last year has been building up. I really need something just where I could have all my stuff in one place, but it needs to be separated at the same time. I need to send a bear crawling email for bear crawling, finding the stories for finding the stories, work for work, but also one place where I could just see everything. Outlook does do that if you use the app. So I'm digging that on my Mac because that's what I use mostly for work. So I'm using the Outlook app for that. I set that up today. But another one that's free that so I like Outlook in the fact that once I add it in, I can have all my calendars, everything's there. That makes that easy. However, you have to set it up on Outlook on every separate device. So on my phone, I have to go add in all the accounts. On my my desktop, I'd have to do that. That was frustrating, but I like it. I did some research for free. There's one called Canary Mail, like the bird canary. Yeah, I know, right? And here's what I didn't like about Canary Mail, which is 0 calendars at all. And it doesn't seem to permanently delete the email from the other places, which is what I do want. I want to, if I'm managing it here, I don't want to go log in to, let's say, the Wise and Nerdy Gmail and go, oh crap, there's 3 years of email still here because it never deleted it, even though it's deleted on the app. So Canary doesn't do destructive email, and it also does not do calendars at all, unless I guess you pay for it. But on the free version, it doesn't. However, super simple to set up. Like you literally pick the icon. Is it Gmail? Is it Outlook? Is it Office 365? What is, which kind of service you're using? And then you just click your link to sign in. Boom, pops it in. And from device to device, it's just a simple QR code. It's like I set it up on this computer, then took my phone and went scan the QR code. Everything was in the app for Canary. Took my other phone, same thing. Went to my Mac, and it is like,
that's probably the most exciting part about everything you've said so far.
I know, right? It's like
not needing to set it up on each device.
Right.
It's so easy. It was so if you're just wanting to check multiple email addresses and manage it that way, I mean, Canary Mail has been Joe, you're not right. You don't understand how I went, oh my God, that was so easy to set up. Put down another device. Whoa, look, it did it. To the point that actually it was reversed. I set it up on my Mac first. The last device was this desktop, and it didn't want to use the camera system to pick up a QR code. So I could download the QR code, email it to myself, and just drag it and drop it into the QR box, set it up just like that. It was so sexy. I know it's probably not sexy, but it was so sexy to get that solution. So those are my 2 that I'm using right now. I probably will ultimately do the work to do Outlook and all of them just because I like the calendar aspect for what I do in life. But
Outlook's calendar is kind of
really good.
Good. Yeah. If I have to access multiple email accounts, I usually only have to I have to do that, period. But I only care about what you're talking about, mobile. And so Gmail for me on my phone will do that.
It does all right. I just have to.
Well, you just click it and switch accounts, or you can have the combined inbox. Either way.
So I haven't seen the combined inbox, and that's where I was getting a little frustrated. Let's say I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well,
6,
I think
7,
one of the things that may be an issue for you, and your solution might be better for you, is your insistence on sending from each of those addresses individually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I don't want Wise and Nerdy coming from Trinity EMS. Or
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I also do. I have my work email in the Outlook app, and I have all my personal email addresses in the Gmail app on my phone.
And I was kind of doing that in the Gmail, but it just got cumbersome. I don't know. It's just the way my brain works sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. Currently, I have 10 emails. I really need to keep my finger on the pulse, and I'm going to get at least 1 or 2 more for the different projects that are coming up for me.
Yeah,
So
I've got a couple more that I need to make too.
yeah, right. So
Yeah.
it's like, now if we were Bobby Blackwolf, I don't know how he did it, but he's done he's super geeky, right? And he has his own website. He's got it set up that he can just generate whatever email he wants through his website, and it funnels where he sees it, but he only interacts with that. So he actually has a Dragon Con at BobbyBlackwolf.com for when he's interacting with that con. So he can track what have I submitted, what have I talked about. Same with PodJam ATL, and I'm sure with all the other Southern Fried Gaming probably has one. And I think that's a really cool idea. I just don't know how.
It's one way to do it.
I will bet you though that every email he sends comes from Bobby at BobbyBlackwolf.com or whatever his main email address is. Having aliases, having like all those different email addresses coming in, that's easy. That's like nothing. I mean, it's not even a big deal. But sending from each of those email addresses is a little different. And it could be that he just has unlimited number of addresses that he can use in whatever he's got. But having Wise and Nerdy at BobbyBlackwolf.com, easy. Like and having that as an alias that, because they're just aliases. They're aliases that filter into his main mailbox. But he can still track which email it was sent to and filter into folders.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I track it, but if you want that simple, I'm actually going to look at another one. That's a CRM, which is a customer. What is that?
Relationship manager.
Thank you. It's usually for sales, and I just don't need most of it, but it's cheap enough. Carl Dodge uses it. It's called Close, and it's not that much, and he swears by it because he can literally keep it separate. See who opens what. You know, it just seemed to have a lot of tools, but I wanted to start for free to make sure I could flow. So Canary Mail and Outlook were my two there. So Joe or Kurt, either one of you, what you nerd nuts about?
Well, I'll go ahead and start it off.
Is this going to be a guess the anime?
No, actually not. I put two in there. Neither of them are anime.
What?
I had guesses ready for both of them.
Apparently Joe got abducted by aliens.
So once a month, and we rotate, either me or my wife go out with one of our kids to get one-on-one time with them.
Sure.
And we let the kids decide what we're going to do, with the only stipulation being we need to have a meal together and we need to do an activity together. So that way we have one-on-one time that we can talk to each other and just see how everything's going. So this past time, it was me with my oldest, who Charles likes to call Malachi. And
I just call him how you introduced him to me. I'm sorry. Come on.
And so, we went out to eat, and then we went to the mall because he was like, okay, for our activity, I want to pick up a board game. I don't know what board game, but I want to pick up a board game, and then you and I play it together. I'm like, all right, that sounds great. So we go to the mall, we go to Barnes and Nobles, and we're looking at the different board games, and nothing there is looking interesting to him. So either it doesn't look interesting or it looks too expensive, because we have a budget for the year for each of them, and they can spend however much they want for each one, but they're going to get 4 of these days in the year because there's 3 of them. So once every 3 months, it's their turn. And so they have to budget accordingly. So it gives us one-on-one time with them. It teaches them a little bit, very little bit of budgeting and things like that. So it's good all around. So we start walking around the mall to see if there's another place that might have some board games that he might find interesting. And we found this new shop in our mall that I hadn't seen before. And I want to say it opened up within the past month, maybe month and a half, called Vintage Stock, where for a mall, it was actually a rather large store. It wasn't like a department store that's going to have multiple levels, but even still, it was pretty large. And they had a lot of used video games and used DVDs, but then they had like Funko Pops and game consoles and nerdy swords, and like it was my kind of store. Let's just say that. So we were walking around and we and we see on the wall there are some board games. So we walk over and take a look, and immediately my son looks, and there's Lord of the Rings Risk. He's like, yes,
my dad has that
I
one.
want that. And it's the trilogy edition, which is the better of the Lord of the Rings Risks, because it actually includes the entire map. If you get like the 2 Towers edition, it doesn't include the entire map. You don't get Mordor and Gondor and you know. So
Hodor, all of the doors.
yeah, all the doors. And it was only $20, and we're like, all right. And so we go, we buy it, and we take it home, and we're like, okay, it is a used copy, but I wonder if it's got all the pieces. We're like, for $20, we're willing to risk it. And we open it up.
I see what you did there.
And so we open it up, and as far as we can tell, it has everything except the rule book. And so we went online, and Hasbro is really good about making the PDFs available online. So we just printed off the rule book, but it has everything. Like, we counted the soldiers and it. Granted, we only used 2 of the colors because it's only 2 of us, but the ones that we had, it wasn't missing any soldiers, it wasn't missing any dice, wasn't missing any cards. It had the one ring, like it had all of it. And it was all in
it was a ring off of Temu like this one, but it had a one ring. Yeah.
And it was in good condition. And so yeah, we had fun playing that and just talking, and he lost splendidly, and it was great. So yeah, if whenever I go to the mall, I'm gonna pop into that store, because
Sure,
that store is pretty awesome.
You might like, I'd have to ask my uncle the exact name of it, but he bought one of those, is a big actual Lord of the Rings games that has an app to go with it that kind of guides you, and you put in some input, but it's got little minifigs, and you have to roll, and but you get to play in the world of Lord of the Rings kind of deal that you guys might like.
Okay. Yeah, so obviously you can play the Risk the normal way, but you can also, there's the custom rules where one person's the good guys and one person's the bad guys, and the good guys are trying to escort the ring down to Mordor for it to be destroyed, and different events happen along the way. And yeah, it was good. My wife likes what you were saying. She says it sounds like a blast. So yeah, we'll have to give that a try. I thought she was talking
about Risk. Like, girls don't play Risk. You stop lying. Stop lying. No, I've never met a lady ever who wanted to play Risk.
Lord of the Rings Risk is one of my sister's favorite games to play. Board games.
I stand by. I've never met a lady who wanted to play.
Well, and to be fair, you haven't met my sister. So.
That is true too. That is true. But yeah, I'll find out from Uncle David what the name of that game is.
Yeah,
for you guys.
But so the other thing that I put on there is Alloy of Law.
And that's not an anime. That's what you're telling me.
It is not an anime. Correct. It is a book by Brandon Sanderson.
Okay.
And it is, so I don't know if you've ever heard of Mistborn.
Yeah.
So there's the original Mistborn trilogy, the Fallen Empire, and Alloy of Law is the first book in a second set of books, a second series. I believe it's a quartet. I think there's 4 books for it. And there's 300 or 400 years in between the 2 series. And Alloy of Law it's a Wild West story, a Western, but with the supernatural powers from the Mistborn books, basically.
So it's the Dark Tower.
I've actually never. I know what you're referencing, so maybe, I don't know. I've never actually watched or read the Dark Tower, so
not reading it is fine. You are aware of it, though, right?
Yes, I am aware of it. I just haven't watched it.
And you know who wrote it?
No, I don't actually. Stephen King did? Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of Stephen King universe references in it.
Well, and there's like 17 books or something ridiculous in that thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there's a graphic novel that I read. It's basically the first book, and I never found the rest of the graphic novels that they made them, but it was good. And for not knowing much about it, I did enjoy the movie with Idris.
I mean, it's got Idris.
Yeah, but a lot of the fans who read all 17 didn't quite like the treatment.
Well, I think again, I haven't read it. I haven't read Dark Tower either because it's too daunting. There's too much, and so. But what I've heard is that they tried to cram too many things into the first movie versus just simplifying and just telling the first book.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
whatever. That's what they messed up with. Did you ever watch The Seventh Son?
Yeah.
With Jeff Bridges. It's okay if you didn't. They tried to cram like 4 books into one movie.
Why?
And it's a 13 book series. And and then they made sweeping changes, like made the main character 4 or 5 years older than he actually was in the books, and it was just anyway.
It was
So
phenomenal.
here's a hot take. You know that mess of a movie that was Battlefield Earth with John Travolta back in the day?
I've never watched it, but I do know what you're talking about.
All right,
I refuse.
You're like, I refuse to acknowledge
here's the
its
thing.
existence.
I read the book like 3 times. That movie should have been at least 4 movies in order to do the world building that needed to be done. Because it's basically this dude who really is kind of a caveman at the beginning, and he, through a lot of detail in the book, learns all about the aliens that are taking over the world and ends up overthrowing them. But they go through the steps that he took to get to that point. And it was really quite fascinating. The movie was a pile of junk. Because they tried to cram too much into it. And
it doesn't make sense at all.
It doesn't. No, it's because they kept trying to. It's because they tried to cram it too much in. And in the book, they go into painstaking detail about how these next things happen. And and look, it is L. Ron Hubbard, so he's going to get a bunch of hate based on that anyway. But I will still maintain it's not bad. The book is not bad. It's the movie that was really terrible. So anyhow.
But anyhow, out of the way of law. So it's a Western with supernatural abilities.
Nice.
So in the Mistborn world, people, depending on if you're born with the ability, you can consume and then use the metal that you consume as a catalyst to burn and create a supernatural phenomena. And depending on which type of metal you can burn determines what that ability is. So like if you can burn steel, everyone that can burn steel has the same power.
There's steel types is what you're saying.
Well, yeah. So there's different things that you can burn. So the main character, he can burn steel, and when he does that, he can push certain metals, not every metal, but certain metals away from him. Okay. There are
so
other
he's got repulsor beams. All right.
There are other people who, when they burn it, they can pull either metal to themselves or themselves to metal, depending on weight and anchor. And like if something's anchored in a wall, it would pull themselves to it.
Okay.
Well, so the main character, they call it a coin shot, because I mean you can literally shove metal at people almost like a gun. Although there are guns because it's Western. But a lot of times he'll take his spent gun casings and he'll throw them on the ground and push against them to jump through the air.
So he's Magneto, kind of.
Kind of, except he can only push. Like that's all he can do. But
he's a bad Magneto.
But I mean, there's a ton of other abilities. Like there's one where they can create a bubble of sped up time. So time within the bubble moves faster than everything outside, or inversely, there's one where it creates a bubble of slowed down time where everything around you moves faster.
So what genre is this book in?
Documentaries.
It's a fantasy Western buddy cop story.
Okay. Actually, you know what? That's not even the question I wanted to know.
Okay.
Time period.
Oh, so I mean, it's on a different world, but it's basically there's trains, there's automobiles.
Okay. So more modern
there's
type.
There's no radios though, so it's like the Wild West.
With
the frontier.
cars.
It's a frontier, right? Where you had cars on the East Coast, horses on the West Coast.
Yeah, so there a lot of people still use horses. Like cars are relatively new.
Okay.
And
all right. So if we're guessing, probably 1930s, 1940s, maybe ish.
Yeah,
maybe a little earlier than that.
A little earlier than that, probably. But
okay.
But,
all right.
And so the main character, he's what's called a twinborn. So one of his powers is to push away, but then there's also, if you're wearing metal, you can store an attribute in it, and so that's a different genre of abilities. And so the thing that he can store is weight, and so he usually runs around at a relative weight of 75% of his normal weight. That way he can
store it that way. Okay.
Store it up, and he can move faster too by being lighter. And he also uses that to move faster in combination with his coin shot ability, because he can push, make himself relatively lighter, and fly around further. But then there's times where he will use it to his advantage to make himself super heavy, so that when he pushes stuff away, his pushes are harder, because it's relative to himself how hard he can push stuff away.
You know, you're giving away like the entire book in the preview here.
I'm just giving away abilities, nothing about the plot line. And so all in all, it's a great story. He originally wrote it as a one-off because he had writer's block on the project he was working on, and then it turned into a 4-book series. And so, yeah, I thoroughly enjoy it. And ironically, his buddy is probably the funniest part of the entire thing. His friend, because he loves to impersonate people, and he especially loves like taking people's hats. But then he's also a kleptomaniac, but he doesn't steal, he trades. So like he'll take something, and then he'll leave a really good picture that he drew in its place, or he'll take something else and leave an apple there, because he doesn't steal, he trades.
That's what we like to call in the biz justification.
Yeah.
Well, he's an oddball, but there are different times where he has some everyday man wisdom that comes out of his oddballness, and he's a fun character in general. So
so my son's into the Sanderson books. I'm not. But this was era 2 of Mistborn, right?
Yes.
And so what's the first era? Like, what's the time period of the first era?
So there's no guns, there's no trains, there's no, it's almost Dark Ages ish.
Okay. All right.
Technology.
All right. The only reason I ask is because for me, a lot of times the time period makes a difference.
Yeah, it's
like
a lot more.
If you had said this was like medieval fantasy, okay, it might be good still, but it may not interest me as much in this case. I don't know. But
yeah, so that the Mistborn would be more medieval-esque. Like, it's not like castles and stuff. Like, that's not the setting. But as far as technology-wise, it would be closer to a medieval setting.
Okay.
As far as the technology that they have, although that's not. It's hard to really say what the original is, because in the original there's only snippets of civilization because everywhere else is covered by this mist, and where the mist is, nothing can grow. And so the snippets of civilization have been set up where the mists are thinner and stuff can actually grow, but even then it doesn't grow well. So civilization is naturally smaller because the world cannot supply enough food for everyone. So that's kind of the setting of the original. The mist still exists in the Alloy of Law, but it's a lot less prevalent.
Oh, okay.
So, and it mostly comes out more at night than it does during the day. It fades a lot during the day. So
cool.
But you know who we have here now?
Yeah. As I said, before we get to Kurt, go ahead, Joe.
Let's bring on Hotep.
What's going on, fellas? How you doing?
Hey there.
Hey, nice to have you back on.
Yeah,
nice
glad you
to
can
be
make
here,
it.
fellas. Listen, I had a great time with you guys last time. It's an honor to be back, especially to talk about some of the new developments that have occurred since we last spoke.
Yeah, there's exciting stuff. We got you queued up here later on the show. We're just now about to hit Kurt's nerding out. So Kurt,
yeah, it's pretty short. But before I get to it, I was just gonna ask, how did your live on Instagram go?
Oh man, I've had a few. I mean, the one just
the one just now. I saw you. I see you.
Hey, my brother. Listen, I was caught off guard. So typically when I do a live with someone, the lives that I've done thus far since I started this Kickstarter campaign have been, have been led by me. It's been people that were, I guess, felt they were doing me a favor and just let me talk, so to ask one question and just have me talk. But this person was more like you guys, like they were actually an interviewer. They did their due diligence and their research. So as I started the conversation, she started asking me questions about other projects and my history, and I was caught off guard. So I was like, wow, I didn't anticipate that the conversation would be like this. So I apologized to her to let her know I had to leave early, but I asked her if she'd be so gracious to give me the opportunity to do it again and do a full interview with her, which is what she was prepared for, and I unfortunately was not.
Well, that's cool though. I mean, the fact that you're able to just talk more about your projects and whatnot in a situation like that, and the fact that she was just interested in what you were doing versus just letting you have a live read ad, basically, right? So that's very cool.
People love you, man. We announced earlier this week in our Discord that you're gonna be back on. I'm like, we're so happy he's back. He reminds me of my old friend, or this that. That tonight we went live, and we didn't tell everybody you were gonna be a little delayed, which we knew, and it's perfectly fine. You're hustling, man. You're hustling. And the first comment is, "What? No Hotep?" I'm like, "You're supposed to be here for us." But they're looking forward to you, so everybody's happy. Look, we even got it here. A wild Hotep has appeared. So. Glad to have you, and so excited to talk about what's going on here next. Kurt?
Oh yeah. So two really short things. One, this sounds weird, but I get this way about things. I got a new rice cooker.
All right.
And well, because I like to cook, and I've had a hard time with rice because it just ends up coming out terrible. And everybody seems to say, just get a rice cooker. Just take it easy on yourself. Get a rice cooker. So I got a decent rice cooker, and I am now like, this is what I do. I'm going down these rabbit holes on YouTube looking for different rice cooker recipes just to see what's possible in these things. I get a little nutty about it. So yeah, there's that. So expect to hear more from me about a rice cooker recipe that I found at some point. And then Pokemon.
Well, before you get to Pokemon, I just imagine you're going to take that right by the end of spring. That rice cooker is going to be in your smoker, so you can cook the rice and have it infused with that brisket flavor at the same time. It tastes like I don't know.
You give me something to think about.
I mean, rice and brisket in general sounds tasty.
It does,
Yes.
but if you could have smoked rice, lots of possibilities there. All right. But yeah, the Pokemon thing.
Is this the TCG one or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, not the digital one. So Pokemon just came out with a new set called Prismatic Evolutions, and it's all centered around Eevee and the different evolutions of Eevee.
You're going to make me spend money on Eevee? What is wrong with you?
You know, when I walked into the vintage stock at the mall, they had a big sign saying, "We do not have any of the Prismatic Evolutions," right? Yeah, it was like, we don't have any of that here. There was a big old sign. That's funny.
So I am not a Pokemon trading card collector. I last bought Pokemon trading cards, I believe, for my son's 10th birthday. He is now 32.
Wow.
So I am not that guy. However, I'm searching for elite trainer boxes of Pokemon of Prismatic Evolutions, and mostly because I want to flip them. I'm just being completely honest about it. The boxes themselves retail for $50. You sell them on eBay for $100 easy. And yes, I do have an addictive personality, random kid. You do not need to call it out. I know who I am. So
I need you to get hooked on Hotep's Kickstarter, because we could really use this.
Yeah. So I'm like, they just put in a Pokemon vending machine at my local supermarket. It's been out of order since the day they put it in. And I'm going there at least once, if not twice a day, just to see if it's working. It's a problem. I have a problem.
Weird, cool, but weird. It's very, very Asian, right? It's a LCD machine that you can touch the screen, and then you'll get this pack or box of cards out of.
Yeah, the machine's great. But
it's in Georgia in a Kroger. You know, everybody's sitting there trying to get their money orders next to the Asian Pokemon machine.
Right, and the Coinstar machine is right next to it too. Yeah. So anyhow, that's my thing. We don't need to go into it, but yeah, it's kind of consuming right now.